The locals called it Danaw ng mga Anino, the Lake of Shadows. To outsiders, it was just another quiet body of water hidden deep within the forests of northern Luzon. But to those who lived nearby, the lake was alive, patient, and always listening. When Nathan, a travel vlogger from Singapore, arrived in the Philippines, he wasn't looking for ghosts. He was chasing stories, old legends to bring to life on his small, growing YouTube channel. A friend in Manila had whispered about a forbidden lake, a place the locals refused to visit after dusk. Nathan's curiosity was stronger than his caution. The road to the lake was long and broken, winding through forests that grew denser with every kilometer. As the sunlight dimmed behind thick canopies, he noticed how the world seemed quieter. No birds, no wind, no sound except the slow hum of his motorcycle engine. When he finally reached the lakeshore, the air was unnaturally still. The surface of the water reflected nothing. Not the trees, not the clouds, not even Nathan himself. It was like staring into a mirror that refused to acknowledge reality. He laughed nervously and set up his camera. Welcome back, everyone. Today, we're exploring one of the most haunted places in the Philippines, he said, forcing a grin. Locals say that anyone who gazes into this lake too long sees more than just water. Behind him, the forest whispered softly. The sound was faint, like a sigh, or the distant rustle of someone moving through the trees. He turned. No one was there. Nathan shook it off and focused on filming the sunset, unaware that the shadows behind him were already watching. As the sun sank below the horizon, the lake turned black, not from darkness, but from something deeper, as if the night itself was rising from within the water. Then, from somewhere across the lake, he thought he saw a flicker, a dim light swaying slowly like a lantern carried by unseen hands. He zoomed in with his camera. There was nothing there. But when he lowered it, the light had moved closer, and that's when Nathan heard it for the first time, a faint, rhythmic sound, like someone gently knocking on wood coming from beneath the surface of the lake. Nathan froze, his camera still in hand. The soft knocking came again. 3 slow taps, followed by silence. Then, faintly, as if the sound traveled from deep underwater, came a murmur. It wasn't words at first, just the faint vibration of a voice trying to form. He leaned closer to the edge of the dock, his flashlight beam trembling over the water. "Hello? Is someone there?" he called out, half expecting an echo. There was none. The lake absorbed every sound. His own breathing felt too loud, too human in the heavy stillness. Then, through the still air, a whisper rose from the surface. "Nathan!" He jerked backward, nearly dropping his light. The voice was soft, unmistakably human, yet hollow, as if spoken through water. No one should know his name. He hadn't told anyone he was coming. The village chief had warned him to stay away after sunset, but Nathan had laughed it off. Ghost stories, he thought. Superstition. Now his reflection, or what should have been his reflection, rippled beneath him. Instead of his face, he saw a faint, pale figure gazing back, its eyes wide and unblinking. He stumbled away from the dock, heart pounding. The flashlight flickered, and for a brief second, the whole lake seemed to breathe, a pulse of motion beneath the surface, as though something vast had stirred in the depths. He turned the camera back toward the lake. This is insane," he whispered, forcing his voice steady. "I swear I heard." The whisper returned, closer. "Nathan, why did you come back?" Cold fear crawled up his spine. "Come back?" he muttered, confusion cutting through the fear. "I've never." Before he could finish, a splash erupted near the center of the lake, small but deliberate, like a hand breaking the surface. Ripples spread outward in perfect circles, reaching the shore in slow, steady waves. Nathan recorded everything. The lens caught only the movement of the water and the endless blackness beneath. But the microphone picked up something else. Faint sobbing, distant and broken, like someone trapped beneath the waves. He stepped back from the dock. The air grew colder. The forest behind him seemed to lean closer, Then, as quickly as it began, the knocking stopped. The water became still again, too still. Nathan looked down once more. The lake reflected him now, but his reflection was smiling. Nathan froze where he stood. His reflection, that eerie, smiling version of himself, rippled once, then faded back into darkness. The lake returned to its calm, unbroken stillness. He took a shaky breath. "It's just a trick of the light," he muttered to the camera, though his voice trembled. "The water, the fog, maybe I'm just tired." But when he turned around, a mist was forming over the lake, rolling across the surface in pale, swirling ribbons. It moved unnaturally fast, as if drawn toward him. The flashlight beam cut through the fog but revealed nothing beyond a few feet. Then, from the mist, a sound emerged, the gentle dripping of water, followed by the faint rustle of fabric. Someone, or something, was standing in the lake. Nathan focused his camera. Through the haze he saw a faint silhouette, the figure of a woman standing knee-deep in the water, her long hair clinging to her face and shoulders. She wasn't moving, but her head tilted slightly, as though listening. "Ma'am?" Nathan called out cautiously. "Are you all right? Do you need help?" No answer. He took a few steps closer to the water's edge. "Hey, you shouldn't be out there. It's dangerous." Still no response. The woman remained perfectly still. The mist thickened around her, making her shape seem to blur and bend. Then she slowly raised one arm, pointing directly at him. Nathan froze. What do you want?" he whispered. The woman tilted her head again. Even from the distance he could feel her gaze, cold and heavy, like pressure pressing against his chest. Then, with an almost childlike voice, she spoke. "You left me here." Nathan's mouth went dry. "What?" "You promised," she said softly, the words rippling across the water like a breeze. "You promised you would come back." He stumbled backward, shaking his head. "No, I don't even know you." The woman's arm dropped. Her hair drifted over her face, hiding her features, but her voice carried clearer now, layered, echoing, as though a dozen voices spoke at once. "They all say that, at first." Nathan ran. He didn't care about the equipment, the camera, or the shots anymore. The forest path behind him felt endless, twisting back toward the lake no matter which direction he took. Finally, gasping for air, he stopped. He was sure he'd gone far enough, but when he looked around, the mist was still there. And the sound of gentle water lapping against the shore came from somewhere very close. He was standing at the edge of the same lake. Nathan's breath came in short bursts. The fog swirled thicker around him, twisting through the trees like living smoke. He turned in a full circle. The dock was there again, his backpack still lying beside it, his camera light blinking weakly from where he had dropped it. How is this possible?" he whispered. "I walked straight for at least 15 minutes. His words vanished into the mist. The forest no longer sounded alive. No insects, no frogs, just the faint hum of air, and beneath it, something else. A low rhythmic chant, like voices whispering in unison from under the water. He swallowed hard and stepped back toward the dock, drawn by an unexplainable pull. His flashlight flickered again, and for a moment he thought he saw movement beneath the surface, the suggestion of figures drifting slowly below. He turned the light away. He didn't want to know. But then came the voice. Not the woman's this time, but something deeper, older. "You should not have filmed this place." Nathan froze. "Who's there?" The voice was everywhere, above, below, within the fog itself. "You bring eyes to what must remain unseen." He tightened his grip on the flashlight. "I didn't mean any harm. I'm just documenting." The mist parted slightly, revealing a dark shape near the shore. At first, he thought it was a tree trunk, but then it moved, slowly straightening, taking the shape of a man draped in what looked like soaked robes. His face was obscured by shadow, but his presence was unmistakable, heavy, ancient, patient. "I am the keeper," the figure said softly. I guard the threshold between the living and the drowned. Nathan took a cautious step back. What do you mean, the drowned? The keeper tilted his head slightly as though studying him. Every soul lost to this water remains beneath. Their pain feeds the silence, their memories, the mist. When the living come here with curiosity, the lake remembers their names. Nathan's heart pounded. Then why does it know mine? Because once, the keeper said, his voice deepening, you stood at this shore before. Long ago, you heard their cries and you turned away. Nathan shook his head violently. No, I've never been here. I've never... But before he could finish, the keeper extended his arm toward the lake. The waters stirred again, and from the black surface, faces began to emerge, faint and shimmering, like reflections trapped between worlds. Their mouths moved in silence. Nathan took another step back. What do you want from me? The keeper's reply was simple, almost kind. To remember. Then the mist surged forward like a wave, swallowing the dock, the forest, and Nathan in one breath. When the mist cleared, Nathan found himself standing somewhere entirely different. The lake was still there, but the trees were gone. The sky was a dull gray, and the water stretched endlessly in every direction like an ocean of glass. There was no sound, no wind, no sense of time. He looked down. The dock beneath his feet was old, rotting, and half submerged. His camera and flashlight were gone. Only silence remained, and that same slow, distant knocking from below. He whispered to himself, "This can't be real." But then he saw her. The woman from before, the one in the water, stood a few meters away, her dress trailing in the shallows. Her hair no longer covered her face. She looked young, fragile, her eyes deep with sadness rather than anger. "Nathan," she said softly, her voice echoing like it traveled through years, not meters. "You don't remember me, do you?" He stared at her, shaking his head. "I've never seen you before." I swear she smiled. A slow, haunting smile that carried both grief and forgiveness. "Not in this life." A faint shimmer rippled through the air, and suddenly he wasn't standing at the dock anymore. He was somewhere else, a small lakeside village, under a bright, living sun. Children were laughing, women washing clothes by the water. It was peaceful. Nathan blinked. He was seeing through someone else's eyes. He looked down. His hands were different, calloused, older, and beside him, the same woman, alive, laughing. "You said we'd leave tomorrow," she told him. "Start over, away from here." He felt a pang of guilt, a memory that didn't belong to him, but that he could feel all the same. The next image came like a flash, the lake, a storm, her voice crying out for help, and then the water swallowing her whole. Nathan gasped and fell to his knees. The vision faded, and he was back in the gray, endless version of the lake. The woman stood before him again, her eyes now filled with quiet sorrow. "You promised," she whispered, "but you left me. And now every soul who forgets, every traveler who looks into the lake, becomes part of its memory." Nathan's mind spun. "So, I've been here before? In another life?" The woman nodded slowly. "The lake doesn't care for lifetimes. It remembers the heart, not the face." He looked around, realizing that the faint silhouettes beneath the water were not monsters. They were people, each one trapped in a loop of memory, reliving their last moments, unable to move on. The keeper's voice returned, distant but clear. "The lake does not punish, it reminds, but those who deny what they were, remain." Nathan felt the pull of the water beneath him, gentle at first, then stronger. The woman extended her hand. "Come back," she said softly, "or forget again." He hesitated. His reflection in the water rippled once more, shifting, showing him not as a traveler, but as the man from the vision, the one who had once promised her escape. He whispered, "I remember now." and with that, he took her hand. Nathan's fingers brushed against hers, cold but real. The moment their hands met, the lake stirred again, light rippling beneath the surface like veins of silver. The mist began to lift, revealing faint shapes all around them, countless figures standing silently in the shallow water, watching. They weren't threatening, they were waiting. As Nathan held the woman's hand, the world around him shimmered, and the grayness softened into color once more. The lake was calm now, bathed in soft dawn light. Birds began to sing in the distance. For the first time, he could hear the sound of life returning. She smiled faintly. "You remembered," she whispered. He nodded, though his voice trembled. "I don't understand how, but I'm sorry. I shouldn't have left you." Her eyes glistened like glass. The lake only asked for truth. It never wanted fear, only remembrance. The air grew lighter. The mist dissolved completely. The other figures in the water began to fade, their outlines dissolving into soft light, drifting upward like lanterns rising into a starless sky. The woman's voice grew faint. "Now that you've remembered, you're free to leave, but the lake will always wait for those who forget." Nathan blinked, and she was gone. He found himself standing once more at the familiar dock. His camera lay beside him, the battery drained. The sun was just beginning to rise, painting the surface of the water with golden light. For the first time, it reflected everything perfectly: the trees, the sky, and his own weary face. He turned the camera back on. The red light flickered to life. "This is Nathan," he said quietly, his voice calm but changed. "If you're watching this, there's something I need you to understand. Some places aren't haunted because of death. They're haunted because of memory. And sometimes, we're the ghosts." He looked out across the lake one last time. The water was peaceful, still. But as he turned to leave, something caught his eye. A single ripple spreading across the surface, though no wind stirred. And in that ripple, just for an instant, he saw her reflection, smiling. The camera cut to static.